We're past the halfway mark and the playoff race is starting to heat up. The top seeds are locking in, the bubble teams are desperate for a spark, and every game counts more than the last. The road to playoffs starts here at the Crossroads. Welcome to Episode 4 of Tilt-Proof League of Legends. We have got a 3-person cast for us here on Episode 4. We apologize for unfortunately missing the last week, but it makes it all the better as we are really getting towards the end of the regular season and getting towards our fall semester postseason. I've got Shibby and Alk on the cast with us on the podcast here. Shibby, how are you doing? This is our first time on Tilt Proof together, but you're on, of course, episode 3.
Yeah, well, I was hoping to get a 4-banger here. Unfortunately, Slayer can't make it, but yeah, we'll be alternating in and out. Don't know if you guys got to see last week's Tilt Proof, but I had a bold prediction. One of them actually panned out, which we'll talk about later in this episode.
Yeah. I'm just happy because I was on the first 2 episodes plus episode 0, so I was ready to finally let someone else take the reins. I was like, please.
Yeah, we gotta make sure we get the whole cast and crew in here to talk about Division 1 League of Legends, which is exactly what we're gonna be doing here today. Let's start things off by recapping our last week of games. Obviously, we had week 4 passing by, but in my opinion, week 5 has been one of the most exciting weeks that we've had in terms of the results specifically of the games. In League of Legends division specifically, 3 of our 4 matches went the distance, went to that decided third game. Let's start things off with the first matchup. Or actually, you know what? Let's get the 2-0 out of the way first, just to make sure we have a lot of time to talk about the really close matchups here, which was of course Maryville 2-0ing Boise State. Alk, I feel like this was a pretty expected result, but good for Maryville to at least come in and have themselves a clean week.
Yeah, there was a bottom lane dive that we saw versus Crimson that I everybody kind of knew wasn't gonna work, and then it didn't. And then there was just a lot of shenanigans going on. I think last week was probably the craziest week when it came to like actual things that happened in the game that may have decided results. But this Maryville Boise game, I there was no notes from me.
My
Yeah,
only note was Crimson had that one death in game 2, really ruined the perfect game. So that's my
Yeah.
criticism over there. It was 21 kills to 1, and the one death was Crimson. So they had the chance to go for the perfect 21-0, but Crimson let us down, Shibby.
yeah, I saw a game ended before Shelly spawned, and I was like, yeah, that sounds about business as usual for Maryville. I mean, I'm glad that Maryville is taking Boise State as serious as they would like SLU or Winthrop, right? They're not really like playing any games, which is kind of good to see. I'm glad that Maryville is like taking every single game and every single series as serious as possible.
Yeah, hey, they're gonna need to continue to stay at their A game with some of the other teams that are coming up in Division 1. We'll get into some of these 2-1 matches now, which I got to take a victory lap for this next one here as Stony Brook won 2-1 over the Ohio
Oh.
State University. I think Shibby, you had a similar take on the last episode, but
Yep.
really early on into the season, I said that Stony Brook was going to be better than Ohio State,
True.
and Alk disagreed with me. I guess first of all, I'll give Shibby your chance to honor your bet from last week, and then we'll start talking about the match.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Grapes. I think week 5 is probably the most exciting week for a lot of different reasons. Obviously, we had the St. Clair and Winthrop battle, but I was really interested in Stony Brook versus Ohio State simply because I'm obviously familiar with the other conference that Ohio State plays in the MEC. I've been in that region for a while. So I kind of knew like, hey, this team is a little suspect. They also almost bounced out last year in the round of 32. Like it was really bad. It was interesting to see Ohio State kind of falter, but I really like that Stony Brook kind of are reinvigorated with their mid laner Vin, who replaced Yana Hamasila. I'm not sure if it's a replacement or if it's kind of as a substitute situation. Maybe they're playing with a 6-man roster, but Vin has stepped up to the plate, and I think we got to interview him last week. And they said that they could aim for top 2, if not top 3. And right now, technically, they're tied for second place with Winthrop at 4-1.
Oh man.
Alk, what do you have to
Notes
say
on
on
I
this?
Ohio State?
What are your thoughts on how Ohio State performed? Because To their credit, they won game number 2, I would say relatively convincingly. You know, you had
Yeah.
Shalush on the Jacks have a solid 9-0 game, 11 kills for Ruler. Not that Ruler, but this Ruler here in Division 1 going 11-4 and 11. But then game number 3, that was all Stony Brook as well. They ended up taking it home.
What an insane bot gap this series. Like, I thought Chubby Pig was already like, I thought this bot lane was pretty good. But I didn't know how they would look because I think a lot of their early season was up in the air. Yana Hamasila in an interview said that like they weren't preparing because the teams they were going up against just weren't very good, which I think is fair. But I was like, okay, how realistic is this going to be? And then they had a Maryville matchup, and it's like, okay, they got stomped. Okay, that's fine. Then it's like, okay, how realistic are these wins going to be? And we very early propped up on Tilt Proof that the matchup for fourth was going to be Ohio State versus Stony Brook. And I mean, what happened was that Five Fire didn't really matter, like that he was getting, like, he just played all 3 lanes better than his opponent, but Five Fire didn't have a bot lane for the whole series. Even if Dancing with the BL is going even versus like 2M2MC, I didn't really feel like there was like I feel like all of Ohio State didn't really come to play in the same way that Stony Brook did. Like from draft, there weren't very many angles. I think that the way that they played lane a lot of the times, like 2M2MC has a counter matchup in game number 1 as the Camille versus Gwen, and he's losing like pre 6 minutes. We're not moving Five Fire, and we're like trying to overplay on dives on bottom lane. We're trying to take a 2v2 with Corky Nami, which all you want to do is be able to poke them out. Like we don't want to be trying to all in Sivir. Even if at level 1 we think that that's something that's a little bit more playable. It sucks because I wanted to see more from Ohio State, but Shibby had the real download, and uh, this team is just playing well. Like Stony Brook is playing well to their opponents. I'm glad that Ketong stopped picking the troll picks. He even said so in the interview. He's like, okay, we're kind of done with the Shaco and the Jarvan.
Well, I'm still holding out on hope that we might get some of that later on in the tournament. But at least for now, locking in for the regular season. Respect them going for you know,
Mhm.
the things that are a little bit more meta. But this is something that I remember noticing from teams from Stony Brook last year when they played in the Eastern Conference is just their team play ended up being really good, and it kind of didn't matter who was playing in the bot lane alongside Ketong. It just always seemingly ended up being a situation where, hey, Ketong's gonna end up helping out that bottom laner perform. Right now, it's Chubby Pig. There's a numerous amount of other bot laners that he has played with over the past year in CLoL, but Stony Brook has always been a kind of that bot-centric team, and we certainly saw it. Even the loss, Chubby Pig had a pretty good Kaisa game, and
Oh yeah.
that's something that I'm really excited about. If Ketong is going to be able to, put this team and help them from that support position, that's like a super exciting build of a roster, in my opinion. I'm pretty excited to see what Stony Brook can do. Obviously, right now they're tied for second, and to their credit, they have all of their path forward completely is up to them to decide. Because they are playing against the teams that are directly competing with them for that top 2, like they said. So if they really want it, they got to earn it, but they can do it by just taking care of business and winning each of their games in front of them. So
Yeah,
we'll
just
talk a little
beat
bit more.
Winthrop and St. Clair. Yeah, just beat those guys.
Hey,
Just beat
if they
the rest of the
they wanna
top
do it,
3.
they wanna be top 3, they're gonna have to do that at some point. You gotta have to it's gonna have to be now, and good time
Yeah.
to scale into the back half of the regular season. Schedule ended up working out that way for them. They have a little bit of momentum going into these matches. Speaking of teams that are kind of on the bubble, for, whether it's their top 2, top 3, let's talk about the bubble for even getting into the playoffs, because we had a really big matchup that ended up probably having a big impact on what that could look like, with Utah picking up their first win of the regular season against West Virginia University, 2-1. I feel like this was always the conversation of, is Utah going to be able to, step up and be in that top 5 to 6 conversation, or will it be West Virginia be able to do that? It was a very pretty back and forth series, but it ends up being Utah that take care of business with a pretty decisive game number 3, all.
I mean, I was really excited for the Utes because I think all season we've been talking about that this leaderboard is kind of segmented into sections. Like top 3 is really going to be battling against each other, and we'll kind of see if Stony Brook kind of push themselves into that bracket going into the back half of or the very end of the season. But then the bottom end, West Virginia, Utah, and Boise are all going to be fighting for essentially the 6th place spot. And very early on, I think we figured out that Boise are probably not making it in. So now it's West Virginia versus the Utes, and this might just be the matchup that essentially decides who gets playoffs, because their future opponents aren't looking like very easy wins either. And I'm looking at it. So they're both tied for 6 technically from a standings perspective, 1 and 4. But if you look at game score, obviously Utah do have the head-to-head, but West Virginia is 3 and 8 in game score, and Utah is 2 and 9 in game score. So things can get a little bit slippery, especially if we get one more win for one of these two.
Here's the thing about Utah, though. They still get to play Boise State next week, or the last week of the season. And so that's going to be a pretty big opportunity to pick up some wins in that win column if they're able to do what West Virginia was able to do to Boise.
Yeah, they play Maryville next, though.
They're not going to sneak a game with that one. I think West Virginia's next and final hope is going to be in week 6. They do play Ohio State, who's coming fresh off of a loss here.
Yeah.
Look, that's where they're going to have to make their money. But if, like you said, Boise State loses to Utah ends up going up on the match score. The head-to-head wouldn't really matter, because if West Virginia drops to both Ohio State and Winthrop, then it's kind of cooked, even with the game score. Like they have to win week 6, or they are out, I would argue, from playoff. Unless Boise State comes in. Maybe I could be wrong.
I need Boise State to do Boise State to do the funniest thing possible.
Yes,
it would be a great way to wrap up the season, even if they don't end up qualifying.
They get one win.
What an awesome way to go into the winter break, go into the spring semester, be like, hey, we just ruined the team's chances of making the playoffs. That's, they're playing the spoiler beautifully, and that would be a really fun way to wrap up the regular season for them. Yeah, I mean, overall though, Utah, pretty good way to close things down. They had a really strange game 1 where they had a Narwhal on the York top lane, just completely isolated from the team for almost all the game, and got 11 kills, but then ended up not really being able to do as much with it. And then the rest of the way, somehow Utah still ended up closing things out. But I like that kind of play style from them, where it's like, all right, we're gonna put you on the split pushers, we're gonna send you up there, you're gonna have a good time, and we'll see if that ends up paying off for them against either Maryville University or Boise State, with the two opposite sides of the spectrum in the standings right now. Our last matchup that we got to talk about, in my opinion, was one of the most exciting ones that we had in the week. And, we'll get into some awards later. We can have some further conversations over how the rest of those games went. But this was one of the first matchups that we had, the last matchup that we had on Sunday was Winthrop University against St. Clair. And it was the Winthrop Eagles taking it 2-1 over the Saints. It's a matchup, Alk, that we've seen in the CLOL Championships time and time again, in other conferences as well. Their first matchup here in Division 1, and it looked like St. Clair was going to come out firing at the start of it, but Winthrop end up locking in off of a massive 2-game performance from Mobility.
Yeah, St. Clair, though, the whole thing with this team, this whole tournament has been, you have good early games. The first 10, 15 minutes, you guys look like you're really poised because you have very strong laners. And then we get into mid-game, and some random shit happens. Like, we are dying on side lanes. We are trying to overdive. I feel like sometimes Maddie doesn't take an extra step in trying to push the game a little bit further. Sometimes I think he gets a little bit comfortable with the lead that his team has, and he doesn't want to throw it for whatever reason. I can't exactly attest to it. And even Winthrop have spoken, they lost to them in Nace very recently. So there's something about this team from St. Clair Saints that just does not compute for Winthrop and somehow will trip them up. I think sometimes that comes from either their strong laning or just, I think that sometimes their laners just have these super explosive performances. Flocon as a player, I think always has at least one game, either a week or a month, where we're just holy crap, this kid is insane. He's got hands. We're reminded that this kid is really, really talented. But then they just fall apart. That game 3 was really sad, especially top lane. I think we do need to start calling in, as funny as it is, Ricky as a player is very suspect. Like, we have a counter matchup, we're playing Olaf into Camille, and we're getting solo killed. And we have a Karma on our team, or we have Emilio on our team. Like, or Emilio's on enemy team, we have Karma on our team. Like, we should be winning, and we're getting solo killed multiple times by Denethor, which it is his champion. It is Camille for Denethor, but Ricky, come on, you're like a super senior at this point. I think, especially as the veteran on your team, alongside your coach, Maddie, who's playing jungle, you got to step up. Even if this is maybe, like this isn't a collegiate championship, we should expect more. That's just, I think that's fair.
This team frustrates me, man. Like,
Yes.
I had them taking it over Winthrop. I really thought they'd be able to do it. I'm also just curious. I'm not sure if you guys know the reason as to why Miracle's not playing. Like, I'm not saying FaZe is bad by any means. I just felt like this team functioned better when they had Miracle and when St. Clair when they were doing their OQ run. They beat teams like Polestar who had like Dark Wings and Rovex and all these kind of guys. Like, they were a very good team, and that's where kind of Maddie's rise came from. Ricky's champion pool is suspect, and I think Fearless is only going to expose that more. We're currently in a best of 3 format. Like, when we get into playoffs, I'm not sure how St. Clair is going to function if they go to a game 4 or a game like this.
Well, they'd have to make finals to see a game 5, so there's only best of 5 in the finals, so I don't think that's happening either.
The first game, though, the first game impressed me. Can we give some credit to Lig? In that game 1, I feel like him and Maddie really popped off. The thing for St. Clair for me is I feel like they just love fighting all the time in the early game. Like they'll go really crazy, and then for some reason halfway through that kind of turns off a little bit, and then that is the opportunity for the opposition to strike. We saw Maryville do that in their game against St. Clair a couple of weeks ago, and in game 2s and 3, we saw Winthrop be able to kind of out team fight St. Clair at the end as well. And so I definitely thought Winthrop was a stronger team going in. I think even though Rapid is getting a majority of these reps right now, I think he actually fits in with the team rather nicely, at least at this point. I was surprised to see St. Clair take that first game, but shout out to Winthrop for bouncing back. And again, mobility with 30 combined kills over the last 2 games, really putting the team on his back. I feel like a lot of times we give mobility a little bit of a flack for not showing up in the big moments. He showed up in the biggest of moments here in this series.
I mean, it's a regular season game. Let's pump the brakes now. I gotta see this guy in playoffs. We gotta see what this Winthrop team can do in playoffs. It's a regular season game. There's a little bit less pressure. I will give I think the only caveat that I'm willing to give to St. Clair is that this is still a roster that is kind of being built as it goes along. Like where Maddie has spoken multiple times, both on and off stream, that this is a roster that's a work in progress. We don't know who's going to be the jungler starting for next year because Maddie is trying to transition into a coaching role. Obviously, we've seen Alonso now play 2 different roles, and Miracle FaZe is like a lineup that is going to be, I think, interchangeable. I assume one of the only reasons I can assume that Miracle just wasn't here for the game is that they either wanted to try out FaZe and probably had something IRL show up, whether it was a nighttime class or something else. And also, Sama is allegedly supposed to come back at the beginning of the next year. He's back at home right now. So that's the only reason that they're playing with a different top laner.
Yeah, for all the struggles, the fact that their only losses so far against Winthrop and Maryville, you got to give them credit at least for now, but still a lot of opportunity to try to finish things out, especially once we go towards the playoffs. Now, that's our match recaps now, but there's only 2 weeks left of the regular season, so let's really dive into these standings as well. Maryville currently sitting at first place. Then you have a tie for second with Winthrop and Stony Brook both at 4-1. We then have St. Clair at 3-2, just losing this last game to Winthrop. And then it goes Ohio State, Utah, and West Virginia technically are tied right now. But again, game score, I believe, going toward the Mountaineers at this point. And then Boise State at 0-5. I guess the first thing that we could talk about is the battle towards the top, right? We have Maryville currently undefeated. Their last they've already played Winthrop. Their last matchup is against Boise, as we mentioned earlier, or sorry, they just played Boise, but they have just 2 more matches left. How strong do we think Maryville really are at this point? Are there any teams that you think have a legitimate chance of contesting them once we get into the playoffs, or is it their tournament to lose?
Shibby, I think you know my answer here. I I think it's just Winthrop, and it depends on if Maryville are kind of dicking around because they have been very suspect this season. I still don't know how I feel about Scary Jerry and Crowdgen. I'm glad that Niles is putting those boys to work on the track because they have been, they've definitely been having fun. We still don't know who's going to be the starting jungler going into 2026 between Music and Shimmer. Like Toasty looks like he's warming up, but I still don't know if this team has all the pieces like in the right places for their solo lanes. Like I feel like all of the data that we have learned this season is really fake. So I want to see what this team looks like when you put the word playoffs in front of the bracket and they're like, okay, like bell to ass, are we actually going to play the game or are we just like really that much better than our opponents?
I feel like Winthrop's early games have been mega suspect, right? And they're like, I know you say, I'm sorry, not Winthrop. Maryville's early games have been mega suspect. And regardless of the roster that you put in front of them, whether it's Music or Shimmer or Spyrax is randomly playing here or whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's weird. It's odd that you mentioned Toasty. I think he's been the most consistent part of this team in terms of his laning and just how he functions within the mid lane. Like I think he's a rock and he's always going to be good. And we can talk about superlatives and MVPs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I, I know you say Winthrop's the only one, but like all engines firing, St. Clair on max like capacity. There's a
Okay.
there's a world, dude. Hey, there's a world where they take this team to 5 games. I'm gonna call my shot right now because I think we
Oh,
kind of predict
okay.
what the playoffs are.
Yeah.
I
Sure.
think
Sure.
St. Clair makes finals over Winthrop and they go against Maryville. I'm gonna
Oh
call
my
my shot
gosh.
there.
Wow. That's a
I
hot
think
take right off the bat.
they've come close twice, right? Obviously Nace, and then now here. Like, surely, if they play as good of an early game into Winthrop that they have before, then like if they can already translate one of those games into a win, what's to say the next two? Like, it has to be a titanic performance from Mobility in. Because like the thing is, St. Clair's mid jungle, Flocon and Maddie, I will say are right now better than Rapid and Sword as a duo. And that is like St. Clair's biggest win condition. Ricky is like, I don't know what the opposite of an X factor is. He's like the Z factor. Like he doesn't like he can kind of into
The
Denethor.
F factor, dog.
The F factor, the Ricky factor. Ricky is the Ricky
There you go.
factor. And the thing, I'm not saying that, Froggo. That's not
The L factor. I agree.
that's crazy. I think Ricky can have his games when he's on his champions, and the thing is, it's just like it's about damage mitigation, right? For St. Clair, like I don't know how consistently Mobility and Only 35 are gonna like just blast Lig in phase consistently, right? Or if it's like if it's Miracle or whoever's down there, right? So I'm gonna call my shot now. I think it's kind of fun to do that. I like doing it. I think St. Clair's gonna make finals over Winthrop in the playoffs.
I need to see better execution in the mid and late game from St. Clair in order to have that take, because you can have a great early game against these top teams. Against the bottom tier teams, it's worked out great for them. St. Clair against the teams that are below them in the standings currently are undefeated. But when you take into account, even no matter how far behind you are, if you got mobility with a pocket enchanter for only 35 and rapid on some engaged tank and or something or other, I'm never counting Winthrop out. And if St. Clair continued to fumble some of the objective setups and the team fighting that we've seen from them against Maryville and Winthrop, I find it to be pretty hard for them to close things out, even if their early game is really good. I think it could get them a game. I think it could maybe even get them 2 games in a best of 5 series, Shibby, like you were maybe alluding to.
Well, that's
But
finals. Again, I want to remind everybody the only best of 5 we have in the entire playoff bracket is our grand finals. So this pathing from Shibby requires them to be in the last series of the
well,
tournament.
Shibby thinks that Shibby thinks that St. Clair could beat a potential Winthrop in the
2-1,
best of
2-1,
series. So
2-1. I think
that's I
so.
guess
I
his
think
take.
so.
I don't know if I necessarily believe it right now, but we could maybe see some more improvements from St. Clair, specifically later on in the games as we go along. But
I mean,
towards the
surely we
top
don't
of the
give
standings,
Mobility Jinx again, right? Like that's like, come on.
he's
Like, what
got
are we
He's got a
doing?
ton of champions he could play though. Like I feel like
Oh yeah,
you know
his
there's
Lucian looked really good. His Lucian has looked very good this year.
Oh man, there's we have other conversations that we can have towards the bottom of the standings. I think we kind of already did that. while it is fair to give Utah a little bit of credit by the fact that they have Boise State still left on their schedule, West Virginia, very winnable game as well against Ohio State, and maybe they just have in general two games that might not be a position where they are favored, whether it being Ohio State here this week and then in the upcoming week. West Virginia plays against Winthrop, which again going to be pretty
Yep.
hard to take down. But maybe it's a little bit easier than having the chance to take Maryville. And again, they technically have that game score advantage at this point.
Every single team that is in the bottom 4 will have a game in the next 2 weeks against the top 4 or the top 3. I think the team that we stated earlier who has the hardest schedule out of any team here is Stony Brook, Winthrop, St. Clair. Those are their next 2 matchups by far. Like Winthrop, they have Stony Brook and then they have West Virginia, like you're mentioning. St. Clair, they have Boise State and then they have Stony Brook. Like if you look at it from Ohio State's perspective, they have West Virginia and then Maryville. I don't really like the hardest matchups are going to be for Stony Brook, and whether or not they perform, I think is going to be a good calibration for not only just this team and the Seawolves, but also for their opponents as to whether or not the Eagles or the St. Clair Saints are actually going to be, the top dogs that Shibby thinks he's imagining they're going to be.
Go Griffins.
I'm gonna say Utah end up prevailing here. But oh man, but do I believe in West Virginia though to beat Ohio State? That's an interesting conversation now. Obviously,
It's entirely possible. It's entirely
Utah
Hey,
does
possible.
not have
Helios versus Five Fire, hold him down. Hold him down.
I'm gonna still say Utah, but I'm very intrigued into that Ohio State West Virginia game. It'll
Dinks?
be fascinating as we get towards the back half of the season here.
Out just hyping up Utah players.
Dude, smoking fat dinks with the Amish? Like, I like, come on. It's possible. The Mountaineers might have a little bit of sauce, okay?
Yeah, they
I
got a
think
good
so.
program over there. I think there's definitely a chance,
Yeah.
especially because Ohio State maybe faltering a little bit after losing to Stony Brook. I don't think that's gonna necessarily take them out of the playoff picture, but again, it could be enough combined with maybe some magic from Boise State to allow for West Virginia to sneak into the playoffs. That's what they're hoping for. West Virginia is gonna have to be big fans of Boise as we go throughout of Boise State University as we go throughout the rest of the season. Now it's time for our fun part of the show, where we're gonna do a little bit of a midseason check-in and do some superlatives for both the players, the teams, and the matches overall. Let's start things off with some of our player superlative awards. You call them paper plate awards, whatever. Let's start things off simple. Let's do the mid-season MVP, just the player that we think has been the best, the most valuable for their team. I mean, I could go first, or we could let one of you guys go. Shibby, do you have an option for you or a nomination right now?
I have 4. Okay, I have 3 actual potential candidates and a
I have
4th one
3.
that's like I have 3. I have a list of 3. And
Okay.
I can name my 3, and then I think Alk, if we match up, we might. I don't know. We might have one
Yeah.
off.
Go.
But then I have
Just
a
go. Send it.
Yeah. So and this is in no specific order. I have Flowcon, Toasty, and Mobility as my 3 MVP candidates. I threw Rapid in there as like a question mark, but I was like, I'm still kind of iffy. I think it's Flowcon, Mobility, and Toasty. I know I memed Mobility earlier, but Mobility has looked like by far the best AD carry individually in Division 1. And I think Flowcon can have the MVP award. And I think this is always a cool thing to talk about. We can get into it. What your definition of MVP is, whether it's the best player across the whole tournament and the division, or it's kind of like the wins over replacement thing where it's like, how valuable is this individual player to their team? I think Flowcon kind of fits that second definition, whereas like I think Mobility and Toasty kind of fit more of the first definition.
Yeah, I would. When I think of MVP, my definition is always like it's a combination of the two. Like, is this player potentially the best player in the league? Maybe on a given day. Do I think that these players are probably either like is this player the most important in a majority of their wins? Or even in their losses? Like, is this person probably the most important? My 3 are different. I 2 of them are AD carries. So I have Winthrop's Mobility as midseason MVP. I have Chubby Pig from Stony Brook, and I have Five Fire. I think the only time that Ohio State are ever going to win games is when Fire is absolutely like the goat in mid lane. And that has been, I think, true of all of their series, that he is outlaning his opponents, that he is able to transfer his pressure and utilize the gold leads that he's able to gain to be better than his opponents. And for Chubby Pig, like this kid has hands, but I think he's probably the most important part of getting Stony Brook off the ground running.
Why no Toasty?
I mean, Toasty's good. He's just like, I feel like
is he on a good team?
I think Toasty is a victim of being on like he's on the best team in the league. He's playing mid lane, which is one of the most important roles, and he has the consistency. I think if you have like most reliable or most like consistent player, I agree probably Toasty's in there. But MVP for the top team, I don't know.
Yeah, I think I would throw Toasty in as like my third if we were gonna do like a list of nominees. But for me, the two real frontrunners for me are Mobility, who both of you guys have on the list, and I would go Keetong on Stony Brook. I think even though individually, like the Chubby Pig has played very well, I think from the track record of seeing teams with Keetong overperform what their ranks might end up looking like. I think that is going to be a big reason for me as to why I would think maybe Keetong is more of the reason.
So it's just name values?
Like
We're going off name values? So if I have Keetong, I'm supposed to lose? I'm supposed to go 2-3 in Swiss and never make it into qualifiers?
No, hold on. That's a guy with NATL and Academy experience right here, Keetong. The super sub at support Keetong that you're talking about here.
Even he said, he's like, oh, guys, I'm a little washed.
He's a super sub. No, but okay, you think about last year, that Stony Brook team, I didn't think was gonna be too much. But they had Keetong on it, and so I was like, I'll keep an eye on them. I think I power ranked them 10th in the Eastern Conference going into the season. They end up finishing 4th. That's a big overperformance. And now, I think it's a similar level of like, oh, this team is pretty good. But most of the players on this roster are different from what they were last year. The only consistent piece is Keetong. And so for me, that is enough to give me a little bit of semblance that this guy is important to what the team is doing. Obviously, we can't go behind the scenes, like into the labs. We can hear from the interviews what like the vibes are like and everything. But being from the support position, you generally are in charge of being, a leader, a captain. This guy has a lot of experience. With that being said, my MVP is Mobility because this guy has been incredibly consistent all throughout the season. Yeah. Has been clutching up in some of these moments, like against St. Clair and against some tough competition, like both Scary Jerry and Lig. I think even though Maryville won the series against Winthrop, Mobility had the better series versus, Scary Jerry, and had the same situation here against Lig. So my win for the midseason MVP at this point is Mobility for Winthrop. And one more thing for Winthrop is I think a lot of times when we think about a team like Winthrop, we're like, oh, they're such a well-rounded team. I think with the addition of Rapid coming in, who's much more of a utility-focused player, it's not really a multi-dimensional team anymore. To me, there's a very bot-focused team, and Mobility is living up to those expectations, and he's making it work for them.
He's getting resources, man. Happens.
Yeah, some people get resources and they can't perform. And that's been something that we've said about a player like Mobility in the past. But right now, that is not the case. This guy.
There's no reason to throw your teammate under the bus here, Grapes. There's no reason to throw your jungler under the bus like that, bro.
I'll say this. I think that game with Maryville goes differently if Mobility's not on Ziggs. I genuinely think if he's on like a real AD carry, we would see a 2-1 Winthrop, and that's my headcanon. Yeah, I'm glad we all have Mobility on there. The Stony Brook stuff, both of you guys with the bot lane, I'll give it.
Keetong's on there. I'm not picking Keetong,
Chubby Pig, both of you are on something. The Stony Brook Zaza or whatever, bro. But like, I'm gonna be honest. I'll give your claims more credence if they beat St. Clair next week. Then I could be like, never mind, y'all are onto something. If they just get blasted 2-0, I don't think so, man. Chubby Pig and Keetong both.
I don't think Stony Brook are favored, and they lost to St. Clair multiple times when they played in last year. But I think they can make it competitive. I really think they can.
Is a 2-1 competitive to you? I think a 2-1 is the only.
It depends on what the 2-1 looks like.
Well, yes. I think a 2-1 is fairly competitive outside of like okay, game 1 was a stomp and then the next 2 games were stomps. Then yes, it's not a stomp. Then it's not as competitive. But I mean, I think a more on average, people would say a 2-1 is more competitive than a 2-0.
Well, would that is true.
Depends on the 0.
Will we? Do we have a consensus pick? Do we think it's mobility or does
Mobility.
I
anyone
think
else
it's
Just
wanna?
I think it's
give him the
mobility.
award.
Just
Just
give
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 mobility
him.
the award and move it along.
I think
I mean, I'm
it's
pretty
very
sure we'll
well
do some sort
deserved
of voting.
at
I'm
this
sure we'll
point.
do
Yeah.
some voting with all the casters and stuff like that. I
I
would be
think
very
once we get
surprised if
towards the end of the
mobility's not
season,
in
but
there.
right now he's the
Yeah.
front runner in my opinion. All right,
He's
we got a
Tilt
couple
Proof's
more.
MVP.
We got a couple more fun ones that we can kind of maybe go through a little bit quicker here. Let's talk about the most clutch player that we have in the league right now. That was a little bit of a fun conversation that we were having earlier on with St. Clair against Winthrop. Is there a nomination that anybody wants to put through right now for the most clutch player in Division 1?
I put music. I think when we have seen music for Maryville, I think this guy is actually so good for that team. And he's played tank junglers, he's played like fighter junglers, and he even dropped like a Nidalee game. Like I don't know. I think that's the definition of clutch for me. It's like given the situation, what can you do? What can you pull out? That's music to me. That's like my number one. I had a list of people, but I think music was there. I read this as most reliable / clutch. So if it comes to like
Yeah.
reliability, Rapid goes into reliability because hey, you smack Rapid
No,
up, he'll keep
no,
going, bro.
no,
Like that's
no,
Rapid, bro.
no.
He's a 96 Corolla, baby. He'll do the job. He won't do it pretty, but he'll do the job.
I think Rapid had some really suspect moments in these last week's games, and I think that he has shown that he's far more limited sometimes. And I think when he finds engages, most reliable, I feel like if we're kind of being honest with what we were just talking about, should this not just immediately go to Toasty? Like this Maryville
Yeah.
team has not been as bulletproof as we thought coming in, even if they are 10-0, 5-0 in 10-1 in game score, 5-0 in series score. Even if they are the first place team, a lot of those, even some of these 2-0s were a little bit suspect. And that first series versus Winthrop, I think put a lot of people on watch as to whether or not this roster is going to kind of hit the ground running. I mean, it's Toasty or mobility again, because again, the way that this was read to us was like most reliable parentheses clutch, and there is nothing more clutch than mobility manning up in game number 2 after they were losing the early game versus St. Clair and dropping a pentakill and getting double quadras back to back versus this team. Like he's just farming them, and he's the only reason they were winning that game.
Yeah, I think I agree with Alk. I think it has to be Toasty or mobility because of those reasons. Or if we want to get a little memey, most reliable or most clutch, gotta give it to, I'm gonna give it to, I could nominate Spyrax from Maryville because he will be able to show up when everybody else on his team won't be able to. You know, Crimson stuck on a plane somewhere. Get Spyrax in there. Haven't played top lane. You
That
know?
is
Let's
a
have Spyrax play
definition
this
of
other
clutch.
position, right? He showed up. They might have had to FF without Spyrax showing up. So that's my input here as well.
I think they could have won that series for people.
The way Maryville
Okay.
play, perhaps, but yeah,
Okay,
I think in
the
reality,
bigger-
I would think Toasty or mobility. Yeah, sure.
I think the bigger conversation is to have is do neither of you view any of the junglers in this league as like reliable or like that's what I'm trying to figure out. Because like the way I view it, and obviously like that's my role. I play jungle. I like looking at the game that way, and like I like pro players are my favorite who are junglers. But like, are you saying like music and rapid and even Maddie? I think Maddie deserves a shout there because he's been really good. Like what is your, when you think of reliable, you think of just rock and not necessarily like being able to control the state of the game the way those three can?
I think for music, that definitely is fair. However, he hasn't played all the games as well, so Shimmer's gotten
That's
some
true.
opportunities and has also looked very good. And it's another similar situation to the Toasty conversation that we were having, that the amount of skill around him definitely helps him perform. And that, I think, specifically is the case if you're a jungler, right? Because if you're playing jungle for Maryville and you have 3 winning lanes, definitely easier than if you're playing jungle.
It doesn't have to be just for Maryville. If you're playing jungle and you have 3 winning lanes, the game is going to be consistently easier on average for almost every single one of them. And not to mention, not just like you have 3 winning lanes, you also have some of the highest rated players in the server playing. Against this level of competition, jungle is going to look a lot easier a lot of time. And I'm sure that they would agree with this from Shimmer and Music's perspective. I don't know. When I see a lot of junglers here, my basis for judging them a lot of time is as jungle, you have the most variety of options in a game because you are not tied to going to a specific lane. Your role in a game can be very fluid because your champions are, I wouldn't say like nebulous in what they do, but they are, again, fluid. For jungle in particular, when I think of reliable, I'm thinking of a player that when I need you to kind of play your role and play engage, like if I need you to play engage for my team, you're taking the right engages. You know when you have to take damage, when you're not supposed to take damage. You know when and where you need to go in. You're finding you know when enemy AD doesn't have flash or enemy mid doesn't have flash, and we can try to punish. You're changing up your pathing. Your jungle pathing in the first like 4 minutes of the game has to be like really, really solid because a lot of the times you kind of break it down into matchups. Okay, I'm playing to my bottom lane, so I'm going to path down. Hey, something just happened in top side. I'm going to flip. I'm going to try and either move into mid lane, or I'm going to take this camp, take a recall, and then make sure that I end up on the top side to help my top laner in like 4 or 5 waves time from now. I don't see many of our junglers being that proactive, or at least making as many seemingly conscious decisions. And so it's hard for me to rate when I'm seeing Rapid kind of AFK farm some of these times. I think also his engages aren't as clean. The problem that I have between Shimmer and Music is that they're splitting time, and we haven't seen, I think, a large amount of sample size within this roster, especially with some substitutes coming in. One thing that is going to hurt them for me, and this doesn't have to hold true for everybody else, is that we did have Spyrax sub in, right? Like that is going to hurt the data that is there for me to kind of pull off for this team.
Substitutions make like superlative awards really weird.
Yeah.
I can just fundamentally agree with that.
So do we have a consensus pick for our most reliable player? Because I feel like it could go a number of different ways, but
I'm on the Toasty train. I'm on the Toasty train.
Toasty,
I think me and Alk. Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's me and I think it's Toasty.
All
He's the
three
only
of
one
us.
that's played.
All three of us, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's the only one that's played every single game, right?
I think Cryo's also played every game, so we got to give Cryo some
Yep,
credit.
Cryo's played every game.
So,
Agreed.
Cryo.
But Toasty definitely deserves some credit for being
Spyrax playing top lane and AD carry, like.
All right, let's do these other awards as well individually. Most improved player. Now this is interesting because there's a number of ways that we could try to attack this. It could be from start of the season to now. It could be from like last year to this year in Div 1. What did you guys do to attack this this conversation of most improved player?
Yeah, I think it's important to establish what our baseline is. What do you mean by most improved? I think this award could be a little bit different. I'm gonna be honest. I wasn't following every single player prior to Division 1, right? Like I'm sorry, like guys, like I was following a lot of the big teams, so it's tough for me to kind of establish my baseline of like where you were in CLOL. Because if we also do like week 1, like my pick, my personal pick for most improved is somebody that I think Alk is gonna really appreciate. It's Chubby Pig. I think he has just gotten insanely better and better over the week. Like he has continuously impressed me week after week, which is kind of like my basis. I think Chubby Pig, like he, like even in the Maryville game that they played, like he was like all innings bot lane, like he was like trying to hands check him. Like I respect players that are willing to do that, like nameplates off kind of guys. And I think Chubby Pig not gonna be the MVP for me, but like most improved, I can easily see him grabbing that award, especially because now they're in a very legitimate spot to potentially take second place if they beat like that's absolutely bonkers to me that they're tied for second, and I think that's off of him and Vin specifically.
Yeah, I agree. I would say it's either him or like if you're looking from game to game, maybe a player like Aeolios, but that was mostly because his first game he joined the day before, and they kind of just like almost like a walk on had him join the team and play top lane, and so he didn't look very good. They swapped him into mid, and he seems like very, very comfortable. I think he has good control of the game a lot of the times for West Virginia. Him and Sour are really, really impressive to me. So I wonder what that duo can do for the end of the season. But yeah, I think it has to either be, in my mind, either Chubby Pig or some player from one of these bottom. Like you can probably like take a lineup of West Virginia and the Utes and just put them on a wall, and you throw darts and you're like most improved player, and someone could probably make up an argument for them, a meaningful one.
That's what's
yeah.
great about some of these programs that are newer to League of Legends specifically, but have experience in other esports is getting to see the growth of these players as we kind of move along in the season. And somebody like Aeolius for West Virginia, like getting to see him play champions that he's comfortable on and like do his own thing. That's another thing I really love about collegiate is get these little pocket picks like the Swains, the Morganas have come out a couple of times, and even though they didn't end up winning that series against Utah, still pretty impressed by just again the fact that this kind of quote unquote walk on was able to show up and help out his team and contribute to some good League of Legends so far.
I think it
Yeah.
has to be a Stony Brook player. I think it has to be a Stony Brook player in my mind. I think that's
If we're
not
doing,
not that I'm saying.
yeah, if we're doing like most surprising, most improved as well, like kind of like a combining of that award, I would be down to give it to Chubby Pig if you guys are happy with that as well because
I like that. I
the
think he's
stats
shown
the
the
stats
most.
speak for themselves. Obviously, there is still tougher competition that Stony Brook have to play, but I'm okay with giving it over to the Chubby Pig for now.
I just broke the stats website. I'm trying to pull up CS per minute because I had a stat that I think I pulled where he has the highest CS per minute of the league at 9.3.
That's
Uh,
kind of crazy.
I mean, yeah, like
That's
9.3 average gold diff before their series versus Ohio State. He's averaging like 1,300 gold at 15, up almost 30 CS at 15, up almost like 1,000. He's like almost 600 XP up on lane. Like that's pretty good, and he's doing this, by the way, on average being down two plates. So imagine you're down like 300 gold and you still have a 1,200, almost 1,300 gold lead at 15. That is disgusting.
Let's wrap up our player conversations by talking about the most. This is a funny award here because I feel like there's a lot of different ways we can go with this one too. Most out of pocket. Now this could go with like most unique strategy that you've seen by a player, or maybe the funniest interview that you've seen, or funniest social.
Only 35. That's it.
Oh, really? I think Scary Jerry's a quote machine, bro. Like
That is true. Scary Jerry's
dude, Scary.
phenomenal quotes.
I remembered we were good, or like he said, I remembered they were bad. I was like, God damn, bro. Like,
Yeah, it's like,
I
how
think-
did you bounce back in the series versus Maryville? It's like, I remember those guys are trash.
yeah,
good.
like that's out of
Legend.
pocket. I would never say that. Even if I am jump scare Jeremiah and I'm on the best team, that kind of stuff bites you in the ass, bro. And I'm not. I don't know about that one, but only 35 is a good shout too. I think if we take social media game up, only 35 for sure. Because that guy,
You guys did not see
guy's-
the interview he gave us, bro. We asked him, like, how do you stay focused? And he goes, well, no girlfriends. No girlfriends allowed. He's like,
that's cap, bro. I see his Twitter replies. That's cap.
and then, hey, look, not having a girlfriend and being online is two very different things. And then we asked him, so how have you been adjusting? Because like it was coming up on his first year being here in the US, and I was like, so how is that looking? Because like you've now been here for a little bit. Like, how are you adjusting? He's like, well, I love it so much more than home because one, the food is really good. They feed us very well here at the cafeteria, and two, the parties. I love partying with my boys. Like we just go out into the backyard and we're just chilling. And I'm like, yes, only 35. That's exactly what I want to hear.
That's the college. I'm glad he's getting everything.
I think you sold us here. I think you sold us that it's only 35. I was gonna say there's also some moments in game, Shibby, that you might remember from Winthrop in only 35 specifically that you might also want to give him the award for being an unhinged player.
Yeah. I mean, he just went top lane with Trundle, and he didn't back. I think he was just farming on Trundle for like 20 minutes straight. Didn't back, only purchased full items. Me and Yanni were like, oh, okay. And then he was just like dancing with Boise State's team. Yeah, you know what? I think you've convinced me. I think Scary Jerry's like a good shout from my end, but I think only 35. Based off
He
of the
literally
interview that I've
asked us to stop the interview. He like stopped us right before the interview, and he's like, "Guys, can we make sure my cam is good?" And we're like, "Yeah." And he comes in and he just has he has like he has like black shades on. He's just like this the whole time doing the interview. I was like, we're trying to aura farm on like the most random game.
Yeah.
like for
For
no
the award
reason.
called most out of pocket, I think that deserves only 35 mention for sure. So
Yeah.
Yes.
that's it for our player awards here. Let's go through these team awards now as well because we gotta give out. We already talked about like who's the best team. That's kind of the boring stuff here. Let's do a little bit of a different conversation right now. Let's talk about who's got the best mascot because that's always the most important part of a collegiate sports team is the mascots that they have. And we got some pretty good ones here, Shibby. It seems like you have an option or a suggestion right now.
No, I have a question. Are we going off of St. Clair Saints the Griffin? Because they have a
I think it's the Griff.
mascot, but it's a Saint Bernard, I think. Or it's something like that.
It's
Well,
up
it's
to
Griff
you.
the Bernard. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
it's Griff the Bernard is his name.
So
Well,
then
you
it's
could
the
also think
dog.
about like the logos because that's part of it as
I'm looking
well.
at I looked at the logo.
Okay, well,
I
I'm
looked at
not using the
logo.
logo because MU is literally just a chevron. Like I'm not doing like I don't care.
No,
Like,
no, Maryville is a dog. Maryville Saints is like they have a dog.
Yeah, but we're saying like the logos, right? That's what I'm saying. Like I don't care
Well,
about the Maryville logo
mascot
because it's a
logos. I think the if we want to like really narrow it down, like the names of the teams is probably like the best place to set
well,
off.
no, all of these teams have mascots, right? Like we have.
Yes.
I had this written down, and I know we have it also like in our like talent hub, like a
Yeah,
document.
let's consider all of
Um,
it and then give some
sure.
suggestions then because I've got a couple of them right now, but um if anybody else wants to go first.
What are your thoughts, Grapes? What are
All right.
give us
Yeah.
your hot takes
Give us
here.
yours.
Well,
Give us yours.
in terms of just brand, school identity, obviously Ohio State has to be up there. They're one of the most successful, university athletics programs that we have kind of in NCAA, and then trying to transfer that over to D1 is really cool. However, I have a lot of family that went to Michigan, so I can't necessarily support that. So I got to go Boise State for having the best mascot. That Bronco is super cool, and they have one of the most distinct colors of any college sports or esports program in the nation. That bright blue, we see it on their football field. It's all over their branding. It's all over their school if you ever visit as well. I got to give them the credit. Boise State for their blue and orange.
Intrinsically, I cannot root for Boise State Broncos because I am a Las Vegas
You're
Raiders fan. So
yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Like it's all right. It's cool, I guess. The color scheme is interesting for sure. I think if we're like taking into account like more of the logo aspect and like kind of what their name is, I don't think anything's cooler than a Griffin. I'm gonna be it's quite hard pressed. I'm gonna put St. Clair Saints. Shocker, Shibby is a St. Clair Saints orange shocker, guys. I think runner up is the Seawolves. I think the Seawolves are pretty cool too. I like
cool
I
one,
actually
too.
like their mascot. I like their mascot a
But
lot.
In
it's
terms
a
of
dog.
in terms
like
of
Griff is a
coolest
dog.
looking-
No, okay.
Yes,
that's what I'm
yes, he
saying.
is. Look.
No, I'm looking at it. Yes, I'm looking at it. I'm literally staring at it. So that's what I'm saying. Are they? But it says St. Clair Griffin or St. Clair College Windsor campus mascot Griffin. It just says Griffin.
There's sometimes alternate mascots
full
too.
name.
So I think
that's
St.
true.
Clair is an example where, obviously you have like the Griffins, but it would be pretty hard to like make a mascot that like looks like a Griffin. That'd be cool. So they make a dog instead and put the St. Clair jersey on.
I will say we have multiple birds here.
We have multiple Saints.
We have multiple Saints. We have multiple birds. I genuinely like Utah's bird mascot. No offense, Winthrop. I love you guys, but Utah's bird mascot is like it just looks more fresh. I don't know how to explain it. They look more fresh than Winthrop's. That's a shot. I don't like Ohio State. I don't like the Buckeyes. That guy creeps me out, man.
He's scary. He's definitely scary.
Brutus creeps me out. Yeah, Brutus creeps me out, bro.
Oh,
The striped shirt and everything, and then the big eyes and the
Okay.
like, super wide.
I
face.
agree. I feel like if
Peak
there's ever a
paralysis.
way to get a hawk on like this is the way to do it. Just have like normal outfit and then
That goes hard.
Oh, he's
That
fresh.
definitely goes
He's
hard.
so fresh. He's so fresh. Yeah.
and he gets like the shoulder pads. Like hold up, because this photo didn't do him justice. But like this one where he has the shoulder pads on,
Yes.
this goes hard.
Yeah. So is that your pick, Alk? Did I convince you of Utah?
I think it might be the Utes. I didn't know if I was gonna be a big fan of the hawk, but it does look cool. It does actually look
dude.
cool.
Here's the
And his
thing:
name
is
is
that
Swoop.
the Utes, I know there's a rich history here, but in terms of like creativity in the name,
The Utes is
there's better ways to
not
go.
a great name.
The
I won't
mascot
I
goes
like
hard though. I do agree. I feel
yes.
like we're not gonna be able to come to a consensus here because we literally listed like almost all the
We
teams.
listed three.
So
No, we
He
listed three
definitely
different schools.
stuffs. Literally, probably definitely stuffs his shirt. There's no way this guy's built like this normally. No
No,
way.
dude, that's Swoop. That's Swoop. You know,
Why
okay,
is
I think
Swoop's right arm, forearm bigger than his left forearm? It's so
because
tiny.
he
You can
plays
even see the
Tryndamere. He
pad.
plays
You can
Tryndamere.
see
What do
the
you mean?
pad too.
Look, I don't know if we'll come to a consensus, but I'm down to agree with Alk that I think the Utes mascot
the
is
Utes
the most
mascot is
fresh.
sick. Okay,
He's the
let's do it.
freshest. He's the freshest.
Let's give
He's
it to
the
Utah.
freshest.
Let's give it to Utah. We didn't even get a chance to talk about the Mountaineers, but you know what? We'll get to save
Nah,
that for
nah.
another time.
No.
Okay, the
Potentially.
Mountaineers are a close second for me only because that guy carries around a fake gun. That's as close to my American roots as you're gonna get from me.
All right, let's get into some actual, gameplay discussion now for a little bit. I know that, we kind of went off the rails over our last couple conversations, but let's talk about the most improved team that we have in Division 1 as well. Stony Brook is an interesting conversation because they kind of came off firing, but this might be a good opportunity all to get to shout out our guys towards, the middle of the pack of the standings in West Virginia and Utah.
Yeah. When I think of most improved, I think maybe I go this to Utah. I don't know. Like, it's been a pretty short season. We've only had now 5 weeks. We're going into 6 and 7 here. So I think data is a little obscured as to like how we can actually talk about these teams making like improvements. But I think the thing that I liked the most about seeing West Virginia play was that when I watched the Mountaineers, I think that Sauer had a very clear game plan as like to what he wanted to do. I think that Dinks and this bottom lane are fairly talented, so whether or not they're going to be able to take the 2v2 was going to be interesting. Dinks is a cross team player. He plays for them and he's their best Valorant player as well. He's very highly rated as over there. So I think having a player that kind of has to play both and also still has a decent mechanical level is pretty important. And now that they have settled on Aeolio sitting in mid and they're going to have Inox essentially just play tanks top lane, I do think that the formula is only getting better there for West Virginia. It unfortunately does suck that their next two matchups are just going to be Ohio State and Winthrop. So their closest one is probably going to be Ohio State and the Ohio State, and then whether or not they can beat Winthrop, I think is more up to their opponents than themselves. So if there's a most improved, I do think it is the Mountaineers.
I'd be down to go with that too. In my opinion, West Virginia was a very consensus 7th place team. I know there were some people that had some conversations between them and Utah, but I thought Utah was pretty clearly 6th. And the fact that they made it competitive in that matchup gives me confidence and faith that, as you said, having players from the Valorant roster swap over to League of Legends for this first half of the season, if they can continue to grow throughout the spring split, we could get towards some pretty interesting conversations at that point in the year. Shibby, do you have another nomination, or do you kind of line up with what we're saying here?
The thing is, we have 2 awards, which is like the next 2 is most improved and most surprising. I don't know if it's like not BM of me, but like just kind of lame of me to put Stony Brook for both of them.
I'm definitely putting Stony Brook for most surprising if we're just spoiling it
he's-
now.
Yeah,
I would
well,
agree. I think that's pretty consensus.
I didn't want to spoil it, but like my thought process is: can they be the most surprising and the most improved at the same time? Can you surprise people while also improving at a drastic rate? Because again, when you improve, you have to have some sort of baseline, right? And like from our assumption, okay, I won't speak for you guys, but from my assumption, Boise State played to the level that I expected. Utah played to the level that I expected. Western Virginia played to the level that I expected, right? Stony Brook is the only one that I had I wouldn't say less than savory, but I definitely thought like their biggest hump was going to be Ohio State, and I called the shot there. Ohio State, and they performed above expectations, and they also improved throughout the season, right? They are legitimately tied for second place, so it's tough for me to kind of not put them in both categories as like most improved team and the most surprising. I feel like that's possible.
I think it's possible, but I do. For me, I'd like to shout out West Virginia a little bit for all the reasons that we discussed as well, and then fully give the flowers to Stony Brook when now that we have them for most surprising. Because again, they came out the gate firing. They won their first few matchups. So for me, I'm not sure if I can, if because we have both of these categories, I think we should give a little bit less credit to Stony Brook for being most improved if they kind of came out at the same level as, maybe similar level to where they are
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. I'm also willing to give it to West Virginia because, like you said, like Alk highlighted that they had like a walk on and they have a guy that's essentially a two-way player. That's insanely impressive. That guy's essentially like pulling double duty, and he's actually looking like pretty solid for all things considered. And he plays the carry roles. He plays like not to detract it. He plays duelist for Valorant and he plays 80 carry for League. Like that is like
Yeah.
insane. Like he has to learn not just the game, but he has to learn how to be a carry player in both games. Like he
He has
getting
said
a lot.
in an
Go.
interview with us, he said that like he doesn't fully understand a lot of the macro at the highest level compared to maybe some of his opponents, but he is very confident that mechanically in a 2v2 and a 1v1 that he can perform. So I think that that's impressive, especially like you're mentioning, basically just playing the carry roles.
Yeah, it's insane. I think I'm willing to give most improved team to the Western Virginia Mountaineers here, and I think like moving on to the next one. Yeah, the most surprising for sure is Stony Brook. I don't think anyone would have pegged them to be in a tie for second place and also taking down Ohio State University, who's like a very good team in their own right.
Well, apparently you two did, so I don't know how surprising that is to you guys.
Beginning of the season is what I meant. Beginning of
yeah.
the season, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. I had him power ranked ahead of them at the start of the year
He
too.
he
so
had
that's
them
me.
as fourth. I didn't.
me.
Grapes called his shot a while ago. I needed a little bit of data. I just need a little bit of juice.
His
and then I was, like,
information
confused.
was wrong. He was like, Keetong will smurf. He will be the best player. He will carry this team. I was like, okay, Keetong's okay. He's not that good. Let's pump the brakes.
He's
He might
helping
be
his
the
team out.
by.
My
I
MVP.
think
That's my MVP nominee. My MVP finalist.
I
right
think
there.
Keaton might be the reason Chubby Pig's doing pretty good too. Like I'm gonna be quite honest. There's no way bot lane is
No.
a synergistic kind of thing, man.
No,
It's not.
we did not watch these lanes then. We did. I can prove you guys did not watch these lane phases then versus these guys because I'm watching. Man, okay, just get me to the next segment, guys. Like
All right.
I can't.
Let's wrap
man.
things up with our awards then with the most
My
unpredictable team.
teammates.
Crazy strategies, crazy drafts, crazy gameplay. All of it can be a factor here. Out of all these 8 teams, Alk, let's start with you. Who's the most unpredictable team in Division 1?
Okay, so 2 of them most unpredictable. My 2 teams would. I want it to be Stony Brook because I want Keetong to pick these like random enchanters. Like we get into an actual best of series and he's playing like Soraka and Lulu and we have the 80 carry to play for now. So I think it makes sense for you to go for it. And if we're going to pick Bard, but probably the real answer is like some kind of mix between Stony Brook University and like St. Clair, just because they have the players that are going to play like there's only one other team that I expect to play Vladimir mid that is not St. Clair, and it is Utah because they've already played it.
Yeah, Utah was my pick because Narwhal also has like I don't know. This team, are we saying they're the most unpredictable in the sense that they could come out with any sort of lineup, or are like the most unpredictable in the sense that like
Well,
they
it's
could just
strategies and
hit you?
drafts is like the descriptors here.
Yeah, then I think St. Clair probably takes it because like Alonzo plays Ivern and like all this weird stuff.
Exactly.
And we
So I think
haven't.
it is
And
St. Clair, though.
Miracle has some like weird picks too.
Mhm.
Miracle has like, I think I've seen him pick support Silas and so cute, dude. Like that guy is a maniac. So yeah, I think St. Clair is I think the correct answer, or not correct answer, but I think it's a solid.
Yeah.
Solid
I'll go St. Clair as well. Hey, their early game is so unpredictable as well. I mean, there's a reason Maryville fell down 10 kills like in one of those
Ricky's
games
picking Olaf
because you just randomly like that'll
For
happen,
better or
right?
for
So
worse.
I'll give them credit for that. So yeah, I think St. Clair definitely deserves some credit for that one there. So congratulations for them being the most unpredictable team of Division 1. I guess real quick before we go on to our week 6 match previews. Any fun moments, best matches that we had? I think our best match nominee for me, that has to be this last one that we had between St. Clair and Winthrop. I think Maryville-Winthrop is also a top contender, but I think I have to go St. Clair-Winthrop.
Yeah, I think best if you go for best series, definitely St. Clair versus Winthrop. If you're talking about best game, I think game 2 is probably the best. Like it's the most action packed. I think it's the closest game out of these two. It's also one of the closest games we're gonna have in terms of like expected strength for both the rosters going in. And I'll just give the other section of like funniest moment. I think there's no funnier game in the entire tournament than Winthrop role swapping all of their roles. There's no way you're beating that. And then
No.
still winning. Like that is the ultimate like we're dancing on you. We're Fortnite emoting on you in game, and there's nothing you can do about it.
They're
That's more
chug
respect
jugging,
than that is less respect than Maryville gave to them.
Shibby, I know you had
I-
firsthand experience that one. So
Yeah,
it's pretty funny.
yeah, that was a fever dream of a cast. Like me and Yanni at some point we just started freestyling. Like I don't even. Yeah, that was yeah. When I saw only 35 go trundle top and just farm for like 20 minutes straight, not buy an item, I was like, yeah, this is yeah. That's arguably the funniest moment if we're talking about like a in-game moment. I think Alk mentioned only 35's interview. That's probably like runner up. If he's actually was, or now I gotta go back and watch it. I need to go
He's
see
good,
his
man.
aura farming,
He's so
aura
funny.
farming in the sunglasses.
I accidentally
Um,
flamed him too because I misspoke, which kind of sucked.
No hard feelings, only 35. If you are
Yeah.
watching this, shout out.
I mean, you know, there's other moments. There's other moments I could like reference. I can make up some moments, but I don't think we can.
I think
really
just
talk
that
about it.
series was that just has to that whole thing, that whole Winthrop thing has to be it. I think if we're going off the grid, going towards some social media, the videos of the Maryville guys running on the track and like saying like, I'm sorry,
Yes,
Coach
Yes.
that was
Miles,
good too.
I will never int again or something like that.
That's
Like
crazy, by the way.
that's really good
That's
too.
intense.
But I think because it's not directly in the Division 1 like streams, we have to give it to the Winthrop shenanigans.
Yeah, I need to see Niles give Maryville everyone bear crawls. I need to see that.
I think they
Not give it-
tagged us after one of the games. So when Crimson, we did an interview with him, and Crimson was like, "Hey, can I ask you guys something?" And we're like, "Yeah, sure, we're on air. Why not? Like, we're having fun." And he goes, "So after each of our series, we were supposed to have like a punishment for any time that we like play bad, or if we're like taking numbers fight when we're down, or like just doing generally things that we're not supposed to, because Niles is keeping that team fairly disciplined." He's like, "So which one of our players like deserves to be punished today?" And it was the game where Spyrax was playing AD carry, and I was like, well, he got solo killed in mid a couple times and on bottom lane waves, so I think Spyrax deserves, like, everybody should be eating we should get Slayer. I think eventually reached like everybody should be getting K barbecue, and Spyrax only gets a Maryville meal from McDonald's. So
It's a good punishment.
and then
It's a
they
good
posted a photo. They I think it was music in the video where Niles is like, "Hey, music. So what is this?" And they're like, "Oh, we have like I think it was like a pot roast or something." They had like a thing of food in a container, and they're like, "Yeah, we got to earn it after our win." And he's like, "Except Jalol," which is Spyrax it for everybody at home.
Sweet, that's awesome. I'm glad they're having fun with it too. You know, that's the thing about Maryville and this new era under Coach Niles is that they are very disciplined, very clear on like setting standards for themselves. Even though, some of the matches here not as competitive. Obviously, we saw them end the game before 15 minutes. They still want to be as clean as possible whenever possible, and so that is a good sign to see out of a program like that. And that's why they've won all these championships in the past. So good on them. All right, well, we have done our awards. We have done our match recaps. We have done our season overview at this halfway point of the season. But it's time to put your money where your mouth is officially, because we're going to some predictions and some previews for week 6 coming up here. Real quick, I think we can do these first two rather quickly. Does anybody not have a Maryville 2 over Utah or a St. Clair 2 over Boise State? Speak now or forever hold your peace. And if you do, make sure to explain your reasoning why. I think that says 2-0. Yes. So that is okay. With that out of the way, let's get to some matchups that we think could potentially be a little bit exciting. We have West Virginia versus Ohio State first off. Now, if West Virginia win this, they tie Ohio State in the standings at 2-4, and most importantly, get themselves ahead of Utah put them in a pretty tough situation to qualify into the playoffs. Who do you guys have winning this game? I guess we'll start with Shibby, West Virginia or Ohio State.
I think the most insane part of this matchup is there may be a world where Ohio State doesn't make playoffs if Western Virginia clutches this out. Like if they
Yeah, if
catch
West
It's a
Virginia do
very
win,
tough. It was a very it would be a very weird situation, but I think it's technically possible right now. Yes.
it is if because then they'll be tied for 2-4. And then West Virginia will obviously have the head to head. And if we go into week 7, Ohio State versus Maryville, I think we all know how that's gonna go. And we have Western Virginia versus Winthrop. I think we all know how that's gonna go. If week 7 goes the way we expect and Western Virginia somehow catches Ohio State slipping on like a downturn because they just lost to Stony Brook, yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people want to think maybe it's like 70-30. I think this is closer to like 65-35, like Western
okay, I
Virginia.
do want to say the only way that Ohio State don't make playoffs is they need to lose their next 2 series, and Utah need to win a series
No,
as
no.
well.
Is
Well,
Western no?
Utah
If
plays
Western
Boise
Virginia,
State, so we're I
Yeah,
West
think
no,
that's
no,
gonna
no.
be a
Virginia is
very
1-4, Utah is 1-4, Ohio State is 2-3. Like it's top 6 that make it into playoffs.
Yeah, and Utah plays Boise State right at the end of the year
Sure. Yeah, sure.
or end of the Like
They
they're
but
like
they also wouldn't beat them in game score because they're 2
oh,
and
and
9
Ohio's
right now in game score.
yeah. Oh, now
And
Ohio State
Ohio's
has the
5
head to
and
head.
6.
Ohio State has
Exactly.
the head to head over Utah. Okay, never mind. So I mean, Utah would end up 6 playing off against the
It would
third
be
seed,
some
right?
magic that would have to happen in this bracket for them to not make playoffs. But if it does, if that happens, then yes, then I would also say that we live in a simulation. We live in the 1% of timelines where that happens. I think it is fairly unrealistic that they don't make it after getting themselves at least a few wins.
Yeah, it's that bottom 3 soup is really really interesting. I think for Ohio State, it's just about seeding. Like they could be as high as 4th, they could be as low as 6th potentially, which would be really really
Mhm.
weird. Yeah, I think it's like 65-35 Ohio State. Like despite Ohio State losing, I think Five Fire individually is a good enough player. We've seen if they I don't it depends on the roster they run. If it's Che Louch and he takes every single rep, that guy has been known to carry. He can do the job that's given. And if it's him and Five Fire, yeah, I think they should be able to beat West Virginia. But who knows, man? It's a downswing and an upswing, and like this is one of those things where like, depending on your mood, depending on how you're playing, like you could just lose a game of League of Legends pretty easily.
I think it is a lot closer than I think some fans should be expecting at home. It depends on what bot lane we're going to be seeing from OSU. It seems like they are starting to settle in on just playing Ruler and Delight, which I think is very funny again, over 5150.
alternate
And
universe.
whether or not Chelouche plays over Sigma Kitten will be interesting. They decided in their 3 games versus Stony Brook that they were going to place Chelouche all series long. So whether or not that stays consistent for the end of the season, we are kind of now in the last parts of the regular season now, right? Like we have 2 weeks left. We've talked about it all podcast long, but they're in the last part of the series of the season, and locking in what your roster is going to be for playoffs, I think is significantly more important. So unless we see some massive changes, not only in personnel, but in level of gameplay, I do think there is a more realistic chance than 35% that West Virginia look competitive in these games. I think it's going to come down to really big mid-game decisions for these two because neither of these teams have the cleanest macro. They don't have the strongest side lanes either. So what we get from these guys is essentially going to make or break. Like if 2M2MC is going to continue to play some of these like range top laners / like champions that are trying to abuse stronger laning phases, then I think Inox should be fine because you're going to be playing tanks. But if he gets solo killed, obviously, then everything goes up in the air. If Sour is going to have even better games than what we've seen from him, which I think would be impressive considering he has played really well on a bottom level team, I think this is a fairly like good game for the side of West Virginia to take.
2-1 West Virginia. I want to see chaos. I want to see
Yes.
maximum chaos towards the bottom where we have no idea what's going to happen and we have to get into these weird tiebreaker situations for postseason. And I'd love to see West Virginia bounce back from a tough loss last week and end up getting one against OSU. So that'll be my maybe spicy prediction here. I'll say West Virginia win. All right, that takes us to our match of the week. Winthrop, Stony Brook, tied for second place. They face off against each other. I feel like there's a clear favorite and clear underdog, as we've said. Alk, is this the moment that Stony Brook put themselves in that conversation, or is Winthrop winning this series?
No, hell no. They are. Them boys is going straight back to where they belong, which is fourth in the group. I see zero ways of this team winning. We talked about Chubby Pig and Ketong being a strength. Well, they're gonna get gapped by mobility and only
Tough matchup for
35.
sure.
We talk about we talk about like Vin playing decently in the mid lane. Well, he was getting clapped by Fire, and Sword doesn't even play lane that well, so he's just gonna dog walk him. Like there is really no way that I'm gonna, if they win, then Winthrop are just actually like the biggest chokers and the most like probably the most deserving of like a we are never going to win any real awards. Because this team has been together for a long time. Let's not like
The
glaze over
core,
that fact. Like
yeah,
the
the
core of
core.
it. Yes, it is Rapid coming on through, but like we've seen this team now for almost 2 years, like the core of it at least, play, and they have not won. I think the biggest tournament that they've been looking for. And
Yeah.
we've talked to them on the show. We talked to plenty of players. Yes, this isn't the collegiate championship, so the stakes are a little bit lower. I think that I need to like for Winthrop, they are always going to play with like the chip on their shoulder that they're going to be like for some reason the bad guys of the story or they're not going to be able to win. They have to take care of games like this. Please.
Yeah, if they don't 2-0, I'm going to consider it a failure. No offense to Stony Brook. I'm like completely on board with Alk in this situation where it's like the core of this team, essentially top mid and AD, have been together for like 2 years now. I think even potentially longer. Only 35 came in last year. Rapid has obviously seen this team and has been there. You know what I
It's
mean?
just
Like,
this split. Rapid's only going to be here for this split. He graduates at the end of the year.
yeah, and we're gonna
So
go. I don't know, maybe back to Wilson. Who knows?
it is.
That's
Yeah, probably.
yeah. Yeah. So like, yeah, they need to take care of games like this. I completely agree. It needs to be a 2-0. It can't be like a 2-1 back and forth slugfest. Like I need to see Winthrop 26, 27-minute victory to Stony Brook. Like bearing an end. Like you have to be in those positions. If you're not, then I just don't see how you are going to go into a best of 5 against Maryville if you are the expected like second team to make it to finals, if you are struggling with Stony Brook in a best of 3.
Yeah, the matchups against the top three for Stony Brook are all pretty tough just because the bot lanes for all three of those teams I think we consider to be very strong. We have mobility, obviously. I think Lig has had some really great moments throughout the season as well and is honestly a very clutch player as well as a good laner. And then we all know what Scary Jerry is capable of. Obviously, it hasn't fully come into fruition in all of the games so far, but I think we still consider him to be a top level player, one of the probably top five
Mhm.
players, top three players in this league. So it's tough to see them beating any of these other teams. Obviously, Stony Brook lost to Maryville, but just the matchup is not the best for them. So I agree. I'm gonna have to put Winthrop here 2-0. And I love my boys over at Stony Brook. Maybe there's a chance they make some spice happen with St. Clair, but to me, I power rank them fourth, and I think I'm going to kind of stick with that. I think that still probably makes sense for
Yeah.
them to be fourth.
Yeah, it's the top 3 matchups. Like even Vin himself is a self-described like selfless player. He's the only dude that's picking Galio in this league. Like, you give Toasty a Galio matchup, he'll eat you alive. You know what I mean? Like, you give Flocon a Galio matchup, he'll pick Yone and just eat you alive. Like, it is unfortunate.
All right. Well, with that being said, the end of our episode here, a long one. Got to make up for some lost time last week. We got the chance to really break down the playoff picture, do some awards, talk really in depth about a lot of these players and teams, and really getting me excited here for the playoffs. Real quick, before we head out, each of you, one quick thing that you have your eye on in week 6 of competition here in Division 1.
Ooh.
I think it's that
Shibby,
Stony
you
Brook
got
Winthrop
anything?
series. I think it's that Stony Brook Winthrop series, that week 6. I specifically the week 6 stuff. I really need to see how that goes. And if Stony Brook can like stay competitive and take a game or yoink a game from Winthrop, I think it's more damning for Winthrop than it is for Stony Brook if they lose that way. Like if Stony Brook loses 2-1, like all right, cool, yeah, but like nobody expected them to take a game off of any of the top 3 people. Nobody's even expecting them to take a series. So I think that's the more interesting thing. If
Yeah,
we're looking into
I
yeah.
go. No. Finish your thought.
No,
Finish
no,
your
no,
thought.
go. I was gonna say, I'm looking into the future. St. Clair, don't let me down. I put you in the finals. I'm gonna stick with that. That's my shot out in the fucking distance.
It'd be so funny if it doesn't happen because it won't. Um, yeah, I think if we're just looking at this week, the matchup that I'm the most like keyed in on is I need to see Ohio State versus West Virginia perform, because if they're not able to beat West Virginia, then I think that completely throws off like our actual read on this team. They go 2-4, and suddenly now we're saying, okay, like, is this team even going to see the second round of playoffs at that point, coming in as the 6th seed? Because the first and second teams, which we're assuming is going to be some mix of like Maryville and then Stony Brook, West Virginia, or Stony Brook and Winthrop, maybe St. Clair. If they can't do that, those first 2 teams are going to get buys going into playoffs.
Yeah.
So you're going to be going up against the 4th and 5th seeds, or you're going to be going against the 3rd and 4th teams, and you're probably going to lose there. So that becomes really worrisome if we can't clean up versus a West Virginia. So even though we have our match of the week, which I think, again, as you noted, basically a battle for who gets second here, especially for Stony Brook trying to prove themselves. West Virginia, if you do anything funny versus Ohio State, I'm a big fan. I'm swapping teams. I was the big Ohio State defender for the first 3 weeks. I will switch if you do some magic. I do not care.
That's Stony Brook lost broke Alk's will with Ohio State.
Yeah,
He's like,
I mean,
you know what? Friendship ended.
to your
Yeah.
credit, here, I've got my eye on Five Fire. If he needs to step up. And if he wins this, probably
How can he
locks Ohio
step up?
State in
He was literally shitting on Vin for 3 games in a row and he lost. How can we
Yeah,
win?
but
They
Vin is
have no
selfless.
bot
Vin is selfless
lane.
player. That's like
he's
beating
gonna have
up
to
Doinby.
deliver. That's all I'm saying. He's gonna have to do it. He's obviously been capable of doing it, as we've seen. But if he missteps, if he has a misplay, he could go 10-0 and he dies one time. Like that's kind of the level that we're gonna have to see from him the rest of the way to have to see Ohio State go on a run to the playoffs. And so that's, I think, a real fun place to leave things off. We got 2 really exciting matchups here this week. So make sure you guys tune in to twitch.tv/Division1LOL. Also to Division1 Val for the Valorant portion of things as well. And also, we're streaming on YouTube and posting the episodes on YouTube as well. So make sure you check that all out as we continue to go into our final 2 weeks of the Division 1 Fall regular season. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching this episode of Tilt Proof League of Legends here on Division 1. We'll see you next time.